I can't believe I'm telling you guys this, but you won't believe what I've seen while working as a park ranger in Yellowstone." My friends leaned in, their faces full of anticipation. We were all sitting around a campfire surrounded by the quiet stillness of the park. "I've heard stories about strange occurrences in the park," I continued, "but I never believed them until I experienced them myself." I began to recount my first encounter with the supernatural. It was a warm summer night, and I was patrolling the park alone when I saw something moving in the distance. At first, I thought it was an animal, but as I got closer, I realized it was a person. "They were walking in the opposite direction, so I called out to them, but they didn't respond," I said. I shone my flashlight on them, but their face was hidden in the shadows. I tried to catch up to them, but they disappeared into thin air. My friends sat in silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. "But it wasn't just that one time," I continued. "Strange things continued to happen in the park." I told them about the strange whispers I heard coming from the trees, the figure with the unnaturally elongated neck that disappeared before my eyes, and the woman in the white dress who vanished without a trace. "I started to research the history of the park," I said, "and what I found out was terrifying." I went on to explain how the park had a dark past, and how the spirits of the settlers who had lived there before still haunted the area. I told them about the symbols etched into the trees and the old rituals used to ward off evil spirits. "I knew I had to do something to protect the park and its visitors," I said, so I contacted a paranormal investigator who specialized in ghost hunting. My friends were on the edge of their seats as I recounted our investigation of the park. We found evidence of supernatural activity, including strange temperature changes and unexplained noises. "We even encountered the spirits of the settlers," I said. "They were angry and vengeful, but we were able to appease them with a ritual of communication." My friends sat in silence, digesting the strange tale I had just told them. "I know it sounds crazy," I said, finishing my beer, "but it's all true. A park is a place of mystery and wonder, and it's my duty as a ranger to protect it." My friends nodded, still stunned by the story I had told them. We sat around the campfire for a while longer, discussing the possibility of the supernatural and the mysteries that lay hidden in the park. As we got ready to turn in for the night, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I had shared my story with my friends, but I knew that the park held even more secrets and mysteries that had yet to be uncovered. But as I lay in my tent, listening to the sounds of the night, I also felt a sense of responsibility. I was a park ranger, and it was my job to protect the park and its history, even if that history was full of supernatural occurrences and unexplained phenomena. I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, ready to face whatever mysteries the park had in store for me. The next morning, we packed up our campsite and continued on our journey through the park. As we hiked through the wilderness, I couldn't help but feel a heightened sense of awareness, as if the spirits of the park were watching us. But as the day went on, nothing out of the ordinary happened. We saw breathtaking views, encountered friendly wildlife, and enjoyed each other's company. As we sat by a river, taking in the beauty of our surroundings, one of my friends turned to me. "You know," he said, "I believe you. I think there's something special about this place." I smiled, grateful for his support. We continued our hike, and each of us lost in our own thoughts. But as the sun began to set, we heard a strange sound coming from the trees. It was a low, mournful wail that seemed to come from all around us. My friends looked at me, their faces filled with fear, but I knew that we had to investigate the sound. We cautiously made our way through the trees, following the sound until we reached a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a lone tree, and the wailing seemed to be coming from it. We approached the tree, and I placed my hand on its trunk. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the clearing, and the wailing stopped. We stood in silence for a moment, unsure of what had just happened. But then, I noticed something etched into the bark of the tree. It was a symbol, one that I recognized from my research. It was a symbol used to ward off evil spirits, a symbol that had been etched into the trees by the settlers who had once lived in the park. I looked at my friends, a sense of understanding passing between us. We had encountered the supernatural once again, but this time it felt different. It felt like we were being watched over and protected. As we continued our hike through the park, we encountered more strange occurrences, but they no longer frightened us. We had a newfound respect for the supernatural, and we knew that it was our duty to protect the park and its history. When we finally returned to our homes, we all went our separate ways, but we stayed in touch. We would often reminisce about our time in Yellowstone, sharing stories and discussing the mysteries of the park, but I knew that the park held even more secrets, and I felt a sense of longing to return. I wanted to continue my work as a park ranger, to protect the park and its history, and to uncover the mysteries that lay hidden within its borders. Years later, I returned to Yellowstone as a senior park ranger. I continued to encounter strange occurrences, but this time I had the knowledge and experience to handle them. And as I patrolled the park, I knew that I was not alone. The spirits of the settlers were watching over me, and I felt a sense of peace and contentment knowing that I was doing my part to protect the park and its history. I don't want to remember that night. It was one of the scariest moments of my life, and it still haunts me to this day. It was late in the evening, and I was patrolling the park as usual. I knew the park like the back of my hand, but on this particular night I took a wrong turn and found myself lost. I tried to retrace my steps, but the trees all looked the same, and I couldn't find my way back to the main road. I knew that I was in trouble. As I wandered through the wilderness, I began to feel a sense of unease. It was as if the park itself was closing in on me, suffocating me with its darkness. And then I heard it. A low growling sound seemed to come from all around me. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that I was in the territory of the grizzly bears, and I had to be careful. I tried to make my way back to the main road, but the growling sound seemed to be getting closer and closer. Suddenly, a large grizzly bear appeared in front of me, its eyes glowing in the darkness. I backed away slowly, trying not to make any sudden movements. But then, I heard another sound. It was a human sound, a voice crying out in pain. I turned to look and saw a figure lying on the ground, writhing in agony. I knew that I had to help the person, but I also knew that the grizzly bear was watching me. I slowly backed away, keeping my eyes on the bear as I made my way toward the injured person. As I approached, I could see that it was a young woman. She was bleeding from a large gash on her leg, and her eyes were filled with fear. I tried to reassure her, telling her that I was a park ranger and that I would get her out of there. But as I reached out to help her, I felt a cold breeze blow through the clearing. Suddenly the woman disappeared, as if she had never been there. And then I heard the growling sound again, louder and more menacing than before. I knew that I had to get out of there, and fast. I ran back the way I had come, my heart pounding in my chest, but the growling sound seemed to be getting closer and closer, and I knew that the grizzly bear was right behind me. Just as I thought that I was done for, I saw a light in the distance. It was the main road, and I had finally found my way back. I ran towards the light, my feet pounding against the ground, and then, just as I reached the road, the growling sound stopped. I looked back, but there was no sign of the grizzly bear. It was as if it had disappeared into thin air. I collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. I knew that I had narrowly escaped death that night, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something supernatural had been at play. I later learned that the young woman I had seen was a victim of a car accident in the park years ago. Her spirit was said to haunt the area where she had died, and many people had reported seeing her over the years. I never forgot that night, and it still sends shivers down my spine whenever I think about it. I realized that the park was not just a beautiful wilderness, but also a place of supernatural activity. As a park ranger, I knew that it was my duty to protect the park and its visitors, but I also knew that I had to be careful. The supernatural was a force to be reckoned with, and I couldn't take any chances in the future. I started to do my research on the park and its history, learning about all the strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena that had taken place in the area. I started to carry protective charms and holy symbols with me, hoping that they would offer some form of protection against any supernatural entities that I might encounter in the future. But even with all my preparations, I knew that the park was still a dangerous place, filled with unknown and unpredictable forces. I was constantly on guard, always watching my back and staying alert for any signs of danger. Years went by, and I never had another encounter as terrifying as that night. But the memory of it stayed with me, a constant reminder of the power of the supernatural and the dangers of the park. As a park ranger, I learned to respect the natural world and all its mysteries, both seen and unseen, and while I couldn't explain everything that had happened to me, I knew that there was a world beyond our understanding, a world filled with wonder, beauty, and terror. I continued to work as a park ranger, protecting the wilderness and its visitors from harm, but deep down, I knew that there was more to the park than meeting the eye, a hidden world of ghosts, spirits, and other mysterious forces that would always be beyond our understanding. And as I patrolled the park, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in its depths, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them out. As a park ranger, my job was to ensure that the park was safe for visitors and maintain its natural beauty. I had heard stories from other rangers about strange occurrences in the park, but I never believed them until I experienced them myself. One night I was patrolling the park alone and I saw something moving in the distance. At first I thought it was an animal, but as I got closer I realized it was a person. They were walking in the opposite direction, so I called out to them, but they didn't respond. I shone my flashlight on them, but their face was hidden in the shadows. I tried to catch up to them, but they disappeared into thin air. The next morning I asked the other rangers if they had seen anyone in the park after hours, but they all said no. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. A few days later I was on a routine patrol when I heard strange whispers. It sounded like they were coming from behind the trees. I walked towards the sound, and as I got closer, the whispers became louder. But when I reached the trees, the whispers stopped. I looked around, but saw no one. I thought I must have been imagining things, but as I turned around to leave, I saw a figure standing in the distance. They were tall, thin, and had unnaturally elongated necks. I froze, not knowing what to do. But when I blinked, the figure was gone. I ran back to the ranger station and told my colleagues what I had seen. They listened patiently but didn't say anything. I knew they were probably thinking I was losing my mind. After that incident, strange things continued to happen in the park. One night I heard footsteps outside my cabin, but when I looked out the window, I saw no one. On another occasion I found strange symbols etched into the trees. They were unlike any markings I had ever seen before. Then one night, as I was patrolling the park, I saw a woman walking in the distance. She was dressed in a long white dress and had long flowing hair. I called out to her, but she didn't respond. As I got closer, she disappeared, just like the figure with the elongated neck. That's when I knew something supernatural was happening in the park. I started to research the history of the area and found out that it had a dark past. Years ago, a group of settlers had come to the area to start a new life, but something went terribly wrong. The settlers disappeared, leaving behind no trace. The locals believed that the land was cursed and that the spirits of the settlers still haunted the area. I realized that the symbols etched into the trees were part of an old ritual that the settlers used to ward off evil spirits. The whispers I had heard were probably the voices of the settlers warning me of the danger in the park. I knew I had to do something to protect the park and its visitors. I contacted a paranormal investigator who specialized in ghost hunting and asked for his help. Together, we conducted a thorough investigation of the park. We found evidence of supernatural activity, including strange temperature changes and unexplained noises. We also encountered the spirits of the settlers. They were angry and vengeful, and we knew we had to do something to appease them. Using the information we had gathered, we conducted a ritual to communicate with the spirits. We apologized for any harm that had been caused to them and promised to protect the land and its history. After the ritual, the park returned to its peaceful state. Now, whenever I patrol the park, I no longer feel afraid. Instead, I feel a sense of responsibility to protect the park and its history. I know that the spirits of the settlers are at peace, and I am proud to be a part of the team that helped them find closure. But I also know that a park is a place of mystery and wonder, and I am always on the lookout for any strange occurrences. I have come to accept that the supernatural is a part of the park's history, and that it is my duty to respect and protect that history. As I continue my work as a park ranger, I am grateful for the strange encounters that have led me to a greater understanding of the park's past. And although I may never fully understand the mysteries that surround the area, I know that I will always be ready to face whatever strange occurrences come my way.